Sue Hanley here, coming to you from Bethesda, Maryland in the U.S. Welcome to the Galactic Collaboration Summit, Social Distancing Edition. Today I'm going to talk about getting started with hubs, how to use hubs to plan and organize your intranet. Hubs are a way to help you build your intranet family. And to think about how to really get started, we have to take a step back and think about how did we used to build our intranets. You've probably seen an architecture that looks a little bit like this. Maybe you had one site that was your primary site collection, and then you had a subsite for each department, and then either you had a subsite for each team within a department where they could collaborate privately, or maybe you had your team sites in another site collection. But either way, using subsites was the thing that we used to do to build our intranets. And we use subsites for a lot of really good reasons. We sometimes needed to share metadata. We often wanted to share a common look and feel, common navigation, and in many cases, sharing permissions. You know, the thing about subsites is that as much as we got a lot of benefit from them, they basically cause 99 problems, and subsites are all of them. Think about that physical structure that we've now built into our architecture. What happens if the organization changes? If the org structure, which is probably the most common thing to change in your organization, changes, what do you do with that hierarchy that is no longer applicable? Sure, you can move the site using a migration tool, but when you do that, all of the links to that content are going to break. The other challenge we have with subsites is that governance is scoped to the site collection. And what if we have a subsite where we want to have external sharing, but at the top of that site collection, we actually don't want to allow external sharing? Well, unfortunately, we have to turn it on at the parent and then disable it at all the sibling sites in order to get that capability at that child. So the bottom line is that subsites cause lots of problems in architecture and in the business. And as a result, in the modern world of SharePoint, the world is flat. And in a flat world, we have one site for each discrete topic or unit of work. And every site is a site collection. In fact, we probably don't want to use that other S word anymore. And the nice thing about that flat structure is that governance can be different for each site. We can do things that we need to do with site A and not impact site B. And more importantly, we can move sites around in our navigation without breaking any links. So in the modern world, we are crowded with site collections. And the good news about it is that although we're crowded with site collections, we have plenty of tools to manage them in the admin center. But what if we really need some of those subsite features? There were things that we kind of liked about them. Well, that's where hubs come in. Hubs are a new type of family. Instead of thinking of the hub as a hierarchy, think of it more like a hub and spoke, where all of the sites are actually technically at the same level, but one site is deemed the head of that hub family. It is embodied with the hub's superpowers, and all of the other related sites are associated to that hub site. The other thing that we can do is apply a consistent theme across all of the sites in the hub family, sort of like having a shared master page back in the olden days. We can create a site that is part of the family directly from the hub itself, but in order to become a hub, to be embodied with that hub superpower, an admin has to do that. Once the site is created or embodied with the hub features by the admin, everything else is controlled by the hub owner or the site owner of the site that is the hub. So just to take a look at what that feels like, hubs add an additional menu or navigational layer to an existing site. Associated sites all have their own navigation menu, but they also share the hub navigation menu. And in this example, the associated site is a team site with nav on the left. And then we add, you see the additional top nav, and that's the navigation associated with global sales, the hub to which Mark 8 belongs. If Mark 8 was a communication site, you would actually have two layers of top navigation, one for the local site and then the other for the hub to which it belongs. When you join a hub, it's like making a contract with the hub owner. In that contract, what you're basically saying is, hey, I'll take your theme, because one of the things that happens when you join a hub is that you lose the ability in your site to choose a theme, because the hub parent is now controlling the theme of your site. You're also saying, hey, hub owner, could you please add me to the navigation? When you associate to a hub, nothing immediately changes about the hub navigation unless the hub owner chooses to put your site in the navigation. However, when you associate to a hub, you are automatically part of the search scope. And so that makes you part of the search family, but not necessarily part of the navigation family. Because you're part of the search scope, you're also part of the roll-up scope for things like news and events. And one of the important things that you are saying when you associate to a hub is that when it comes to news, you're promising not to talk too much. And the reason is that you are sharing that news web part on the homepage of the hub with all of your fellow hub associated sites. And so if you are publishing lots and lots of news and using up all of the available slots in the news web part, you could be dominating the news. And your colleagues will effectively not be able to get a word in edgewise. So part of being associated with a hub family is having some agreements or part of this contract so that you are agreeing with the hub family what is okay to do and what is not okay to do. A new capability that is rolling out soon is the ability to elect to say, hey, I would like to be part of your hub, and anyone that has read permissions on your hub can also read my content. That's a decision that you, as the owner of the associated site, gets to decide when you become part of that hub family. The other capability that's part of hubs and part of that hub contract is the hub owner is, if they want to, they can turn on hub join permissions. And then if you want to join their hub, they're allowed to have an approval process that says, no, thank you. I'm not interested in having you be part of my family. A few things to keep in mind about hubs. You could, in fact, have only one hub for your entire tenant. In that instance, you'd actually be getting kind of global navigation. But I'm going to talk a little while later about why I don't think that's such a great idea. One thing to keep in mind is that an individual site can belong to one and only one hub at a time. I'm EMEA sales. Do I associate to EMEA or to global sales? That's a decision that you can change your mind about, but you're only going to be able to belong to one hub at a time. You can connect a classic site to a hub, but why would you want to do that? The whole idea is to make your sites become modern, and you will need a modern homepage in order to associate to a site, so you might as well move the rest of it to modern. You can't associate a subsite, so another reason to ban the S word. And again, associating to a hub isn't permanent. You can change your relationships without breaking links. So as I said earlier, today, when a site owner associates to a hub, nothing changes about the permissions on that site. Coming later this year will be the ability to get an additional permission on your site. Think of this as really a fourth type of permission. You have owners, editors, and visitors. This would be an additional read permission initially that would be added to your site. If your site leaves the hub, those read permissions go away and your original set of permissions are still there. So it's kind of an additive thing. So let's take a little bit of a look at what happens when you associate to a hub. Here I am on the home page of the Global Sales Hub. I can see the hub level of navigation here, and then I can also see that there is no local navigation on this communication site. As the owner of the site, I will also see the ability to create a site from this page that will automatically be part of the hub family. I can also see my hub site settings. Here, I can add a navigation logo. I can give the hub a name. I can choose to show the name in navigation or not, and I can also turn on hub association approval so that if a site wants to join my hub, I can trigger a workflow to make that happen. Let's take a look at what happens when a site joins to a hub. Here I am on the Mark 8 project team. Notice that my site has the blue theme. I happen to be a team site. You can tell that. Here's my navigation down the side. And I'm right now not part of any hub. So what I can do now is I can go to site information. And again, you have to be the owner of a site in order to associate to a site. I get the option for hub site association because this is an open option in my tenant, and I can choose global sales. When I click save, all the magic happens, and what should happen is you can see that I got the hub navigation and the theme for the hub site. As soon as this finishes, I can show you that what will happen now is that I'm going to lose the ability to change my theme, and SharePoint will tell me that my site is connected to a hub, and that's why I no longer have the ability to change the theme. But I have my extra level of navigation, and I can easily get to any other member of my hub family, as well as the homepage of the hub site itself. So we took a look at hubs, we took a look at joining a hub, and here's a feature that we'll be getting soon, and that is the ability to see hub usage data, which is something that we don't have today. So watch for some great new things to be coming for hubs. But you know, when you're thinking about hubs, the most important thing to think about really is to start with planning. And I want to talk a little bit about what should be a hub. So when I think about the world of hubs, I think there are basically only 3 models for hubification. One is you could create a hub to represent a function or organization. The other is to create a hub that represents a particular geography or location. And the last really is to create a portfolio of related sites. And let's talk a little bit about each one. So one model is organizing based on function. And HR is a pretty typical organizational function that is actually a bunch of little functions. And one of the things that we do in the modern world is we create an individual site collection for each HR function. And in larger organizations, these are actually going to be different departments. So each organizational function is represented with an independent site collection, and we create an HR hub to become the front door for the HR family. There probably isn't a lot of content on the HR hub, but that HR hub becomes the landing page for all things HR. It also becomes a space where when you are there, you have a search scope that finds content just within the HR family. Another model is a geographic or location-based model. So imagine a global organization that has a bunch of different operations in different countries. In the case of Austria, there is Austria Finance, Austria HR, Austria Legal, and Austria Quality. In other words, there are functional sites that belong to or associated with Austria. Now, one model is we could have each of these sites associate to the global representation of that function. But if we want to create a shared experience, a shared search scope, and a shared navigation for people who work in Austria, we would probably prefer to create a user experience where Austria Finance, HR, Legal, and Quality are associated to the Austria hub rather than the global hub for that function. This is a decision that you really want to make based on what kind of user experience do you want to provide. The final model is really what I call portfolio. So imagine that you have a collection of projects related to maybe one specific client. In that case, you might make a hub to include all of the content and templates and contact information for that client, and then associate all of those projects to that hub. That would allow the portfolio manager or the client relationship manager to have simple and easy visibility into all the work being done for that client. In addition, it would allow people who are working on similar projects for the same client to have simple and easy navigational access to work being done for that client, but by another project team. Another important part of planning is hub navigation. Just like with any site in SharePoint, you have up to 3 levels that you can plan for. And yet, your hub navigation can be a mega menu. You can have a shared logo that shows up on all of your sites in the hub, and the navigation itself is going to show up right below the sweep bar and above the local navigation on a communication site. Soon, we're going to get the ability to target navigation to a particular audience. This is a really great benefit, not just for hub sites, but for all sites. And I'm really looking forward to that, especially for hubs. Sites in the navigation do not have to be associated to the hub. And I want to talk a little bit about that, a little bit more detail about planning hub navigation. So here's a few examples. A site can be in the shared navigation and be associated to the hub. I think of that as more or less solving the problem of discovery. Anytime you associate a site to the hub, you add it to navigation to make it possible for people to find that new site in the shared navigation. And the second option is that we can associate a site to the hub and not show it in the shared navigation. Now, one reason you might want to do this is because the site is private, although once we get the ability to audience target, we may not need to do that so much. But the idea here is that if you know about the site, you know where to find it, and we want to include it in roll up and search, but we may not necessarily want to add it to the navigation. And then the last option is that you can have a site in the shared navigation that is not part of the hub. And the scenario I think most often where I would do something like this is when I am trying to make a hub or trying to make it easy to get to extranet sites. I may have a hub that is for a particular part of the organization that same part of the organization also manages a whole bunch of extranet sites. One of the things I probably do not want to do is associate each extranet site to the hub, because what that might do is give our partners who are members of the extranet visibility into the navigation that is really private just for people in the company. So you can have a site in the navigation even if it is not part of the hub. So just to kind of go over this whole concept of audience targeting in navigation is when a human curates something and adds a link to navigation, that nav link is not security trimmed. That means that it will show up to everyone. When we get the ability to audience target, it means if you're not in the audience, you won't see the link. It's not the same as securing the site, but it also doesn't give you easy access to that link. And if in fact the content on the link is secured, then in fact your audience targeting is going to act like security trimming. The other way we can do it, if you don't yet have audience targeting in your tenant, is what I call emoji targeting. And that is kind of a combination of emoji and word. You can put a link in your navigation and add an emoji to show that this has restricted access. I recommend that you also put the word restricted or private as well, just to make sure that people know if you click on this link, you may not get access to the content. One of the capabilities that we'll also see later this year is the ability to create associated hubs. So think of this as a way to connect hub A to hub B. This is a simple and quick, one of the things that we're going to get is a simple and quick way to add associated hub links to navigation on any site. But the other thing we'll get effectively is the ability to expand our search scope to include not just the hub that we're in, but also a hub that is connected to that hub. Associated hubs, just as hubs themselves, can only be created by the SharePoint or global admin in your tenant. People often ask, can I only have one hub? And the answer to that question is, sure, you could have one hub for your entire organization. The real question is, why are we doing that? You don't have to have more than one hub, and you could certainly start with one hub. But, having more than one hub allows you to find and surface more information in more contexts. One of the reasons people often think they would like to just have one hub is because what they really want is global navigation. And if global navigation is what you really want, you may want to think about what's on the roadmap coming from Microsoft. So let's spend a teeny bit of time talking about what the hub should look like. How should you design the home of your hub? You know, when you're designing a hub home, you're really designing for any other site, but that hub has some special capabilities because it's really the head of the family. So one of the things that you can do is use the hub layout for news. And by the way, the hub layout for news can be used on any site. What it does do is allow you to show more news articles in the same amount of real estate. One thing to remember is that each site that is part of the hub has to be followed individually if you want that news to show up on the SharePoint start page or in the mobile app. However, when you go to the site, the hub, you will see all of the news that is rolling up into that hub. A couple of other web parts you may want to think about putting on your hub homepage are the sites web part, the events web part, and of course my favorite web part, which is highlighted content, which allows you to, again, choose the hub as the scope and then dynamically roll up all different kinds of content to surface it on the homepage of the hub. So just a little point, I always try to throw in a gratuitous picture of my granddaughter, but what Hannah would like to tell you is that you can roll up news and events on any site, even if the site isn't part of a hub. So the real question you want to ask is, should I hub? What do I need to make a hub? I usually say that you really want to think about a hub, creating a hub, when you're going to have maybe more than just a few sites in the scope. You really want to think about the business outcomes. If shared search aligns with the experience you're trying to achieve, then you'll 100% want to create a hub because there's really no other good way to get that. The other thing you want to think about is, do I really need shared navigation? If you have one or two sites that you want to connect to each other and shared search is not really critical and the family that you're talking about is not growing or dynamic, you can absolutely copy the navigation on site A and site B so that they can have an easy and quick link back to one another without necessarily making a hub. One special type of site that I do want to put a little plug for, and that is home sites. Home sites are rolling out now everywhere. And one thing you may want to think about is, could your home site be your ultimate hub? It's coming back to that question of, should I have only one hub at all? So the home site has a couple of really great superpowers. One of my favorites is that it automatically includes search scope to the entire tenant, and it's an organizational news site by default. So all the news articles that you post to the home site get that special organizational news banner. There's some great guidance in docs.microsoft.com to help you plan the home site for your tenant. You can use a mega menu. I love having the vertical column on the home site so that I can have us content on the home site as well as me content in that vertical column. It's a really nice way of giving your home site, the home landing page for your intranet, a focus that's not just about news and communications, but also about creating a personalized experience for everyone in the organization. So can your home site be a hub? Sure. But if you're going to have more than one hub, maybe your home site should really be your navigator site. In other words, the navigation on your home site, whether or not it is a hub, could be telling the story of your entire intranet. And so you may want to think about making the home site your navigator site, linking it to the Microsoft 365 suite logo so that no matter where you are in your tenant, you're only one click away from global navigation. It takes a village to plan and manage hubs. Although you need to be the SharePoint admin to create the hub, I don't want the SharePoint admin to be the only member of the family that makes a decision about what should be a hub. I think that's really an intranet information architect decision and should be made thoughtfully by people with multiple roles. The hub owner is going to plan and manage the navigation on the hub that they own. And of course, the site owner on each individual site is still responsible for planning a great experience on their site. So a few things to take away. Planning is the most important part of thinking about hubs. When you're going to plan hubs, you really do want to provide some coaching and training for hub owners so that they understand what their superpowers are and how to use them. Make sure that you think about permissions and the implications for both the owner of the site that's associating to the hub and people who might be going to the hub to look for content. You're probably going to have more than one hub, but you don't have to, and not every site in your intranet has to be part of a hub. Planning is a team sport. You really want to do all of your intranet planning with a committee, not just one person. And the world is flat and changing. And if you remember nothing else about hubs, it's this: hub before you sub. Thanks very much for being part of my session. I hope you'll ask questions in the chat. A couple of resources you might find helpful. One is the Planning Hubs documentation on docs.microsoft.com. Here's the link. And some other great resources that you might find helpful. And all of these will be available in the slides associated with my session. Thanks very much.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.